What is happening to my background? Over my last couple of videos, you've probably noticed that there have been fewer and fewer books behind me. No, I'm not getting rid of them. I'm building a library in another part of my house. And as I'm getting closer to completing that project, the fewer books I have in this room with me. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap up. So this is all of the books that I read in the month of July. But first we have a little visitor. This is Ripley. So if you watched my June video, I talked about how that was one of the worst reading months of my life. I've been in such a slump for the last little bit. But July, I feel like I got back into a good rhythm and I did read 5 books, sort of. For the past couple of months, I've been very, very horror focused, and I'm excited to be getting back into fantasy because fantasy is like my origin genre. And I am happy to be feeling it again. Yay! Before I jump into what I read in July, don't forget to like and subscribe. And ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I do upload 3 days a week. In my last video, I was like, no, I only upload 2 days a week. What I've decided to do is I am going to be uploading 3 days a week. I'm not going to be doing gaming videos anymore. And my new upload schedule will be Sundays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. And I will be uploading in the afternoons instead of the mornings. Okay. Let's actually get into the video now. The first book I want to talk about is kind of horror and fantasy, technically, and it is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. So I actually read The Year of the Witching in June and then forgot. So when I did my June wrap up and said I hadn't read any books, that was wrong. I read The Year of the Witching in June and I didn't forget about it because it was bad. I actually loved this book. I just left my brain because I was going through a bunch of stuff. The Year of the Witching was Alexis Henderson's debut novel. You might have read or at least heard of her more popular second release, House of Hunger, which I talked about in a video a while ago. I loved that. I gave it like 4.5 stars. When comparing The Year of the Witching to House of Hunger, they were like almost entirely on par for me actually. I really liked both of them. That doesn't mean I gave this 4.5 stars. Let's talk about it. On the surface, The Year of the Witching feels like a very standard witchy Puritan horror novel. That being said, it is set in an alternate universe. It is not Earth. There is a god system that is clearly based on Christianity, but is much darker and much more interesting and fantastical, I would say. The main character, Emmanuel, lives in this very strict, small religious community where they follow the prophet, the father, the holy protocol. Kind of sounds like real life. Everyone in the village is white except for Emmanuel, and that definitely plays a big part in the book. She is a mixed race child from an affair. The basic premise is that some of Emmanuel's curiosity, heritage, and actions lead to the oncoming of 4 plagues: blood, blight, darkness, and slaughter. And it's really good. I don't know what else to really say about this book other than that it is dark and creepy, a bit gory, great for fans of Puritan religious horror. But I read it in June and I'm suffering from the I don't recall the plot of the book. I do recall that it was quite good, and I think this one is pretty underrated. The first book I actually read in July was something that I talked about in my June video because I started reading it in June, finished it in July. It's Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I know that in my last wrap-up video I said, I'm officially DNFing this book, it's done. I lied. I ended up finishing it in July. I'm glad I did because I like to feel the accomplishment of finishing a book. I'm a chronic DNFer, so like it felt nice to actually complete something. Ooh, what to say about Little Thieves? I don't know. When it comes to star ratings, I'm constantly stuck with this feeling of unfairness where like I can't give this book a high star rating because I didn't like it, but the reason I didn't like it isn't because it was bad, it's just not my thing. So, you know, objectively, this book is probably like 4 stars. It was well written, it had an interesting story, the pacing was good, but it's YA and it was really boring to me. It was just extremely slow. Nothing really happened. Nothing that I like really happened. And I knew that going into it, that I wouldn't fall in love with this book because it's not my thing. So a subjective rating is like 2.5 stars, maybe 3. The highlights of the book for me were definitely the Slavic or Russian inspiration. The world building and the backdrop feeling was fun. I love meddling gods, which we definitely get in this. One of the characters called Ragna, who is this unhinged shape-shifting gal. She was really fun and I enjoyed her a lot. She reminded me of a character from The Black Tongue Thief. This book did a great job of triggering one of my phobias, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's scary. I just have weird specific phobias, and gemstones growing on people is one of those phobias. Like if Margaret Owen could rewrite this and gear it towards like an 18+ audience, I think I would love it. But it just felt quite childish to me. If you like young adult books though, pick this up. I think that I would need like a second opinion on it from someone that reads young adult regularly to know how this like holds up compared to some of the more popular ones. I own the second book, Painted Devils. It's already downstairs. I'm not gonna read it, but they are beautiful books, so I'm glad that I have them on my shelves. At the beginning of June, I was contacted by Henry Holt Publishing and Macmillan Publishing asking if I would like a copy of an upcoming release called The Militia House by John Milas. I think you can tell by the fact that I'm holding the book in my hands that I said yes. The Militia House is a military horror, which is not something I see a lot of. I think there should be more. I think they're really cool. The reason I immediately agreed to accepting The Militia House is because the basic premise of it reminded me a lot of a true paranormal story that goes around on Reddit, which is the story of OP Rock, which is a real location in Afghanistan that is notoriously haunted. It's an old Soviet base that British and American soldiers, and I think Canadian soldiers, frequently hold and they trade off. And spooky things happen there, and it's a true story. The Militia House is about American soldiers taking over from British soldiers at their own sort of OP Rock that's near an abandoned Soviet militia house in Afghanistan. Can you see the comparison? What's interesting to me is that the story of OP Rock, that true story I mentioned, is never mentioned once like in this book. It's never mentioned, it's not acknowledged by the publishers or the author. And I'm thinking like, I guess OP Rock is a kind of niche thing to know about. I just happen to like a lot of true paranormal stuff. So I know about it, and I'm kind of wondering like, is John Milas like ripping off that story a little bit? Do the publishers even know it's a true story? I'm not trying to make any claims or allegations against the author or the publishers. I'm just wondering like, it's strange to me that they did not acknowledge the true story when it seems like such an obvious inspiration for this book. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about the actual book now. I loved it. I read this over a course of like 2 to 3 days. It's pretty short. I found the story itself to be relatively compelling. The characters seemed very realistic. The military knowledge, from what I know of, seemed very real as well. It was definitely spooky. It had some nice gross out moments. It had some just general paranormal spooky moments. There were a couple of plot holes that I found that I'm not really sure about. Like maybe I just missed something. I might have to give it a reread. But I did find some stuff didn't really make a ton of sense. And then I found the ending to be really abrupt. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the ending, of course, but I did find it to be like quite sudden, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just wasn't what I was expecting or what I felt like I wanted the ending to be. Overall, I'm struggling with how to rate this because like up until the end, I was thinking like 4+ stars, but then ultimately reflecting on the book, I think I'm gonna go with 3 3/4 stars. Just shy of 4 stars, but not super low. That being said, I would definitely recommend The Militia House as a quick horror read, especially if you haven't read a lot of military horror. I think this is a good place to start. It could open up just a whole new genre for you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so I have just part of the promotional piece here. I stuck it in the book, and I forgot that on the back it's described as a spine-tingling and boldly original gothic horror novel. I agree that it was spine-tingling and quite original. I think we're kind of losing the meaning of gothic horror though. Like what I think gothic horror is certainly not what this book is. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have no idea what gothic horror is, but I also think that it's become a bit of a buzzword that gets thrown around at every horror novel these days. Hot take. Speaking of books that are not gothic horror novels, I read Sister Maiden Monster, which yes is horror, not gothic, not at all. I don't know why that was my segue, but it was. Whoa, Sister Maiden Monster was crazy. I just posted my review of this book yesterday, actually, because this is going up Sunday. I posted this review on Instagram on Saturday. So you can go check out my review there if you haven't already read it. I'll spark notes that review right now. I didn't know what I was getting into with Sister Maiden Monster. I was aware that it was a post-pandemic contemporary Lovecraftian horror, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it. I don't love contemporary novels, although if I'm gonna read one, it's probably gonna be horror. And this just came out in 2023, and it's like immediately post-COVID, but dang, I'm really glad I read this. It's so nuts. There's a quote on the back from Christopher Golden, who's another horror author, and he described it as a hideously gory, kink-fueled, feminist, cosmic horror apocalypse novel. And I think that is the perfect description. That is exactly what this book is. What I liked so much about the structuring of the book is that the three perspectives don't intertwine like chronologically, if that makes sense. Like we're not jumping back and forth between the three different perspectives. We start with Aaron, and then we get Savannah, and then we get Mareva. And yeah, their stories obviously overlap, and so there's some time jumping because of that, but I thought it was a really fun way to tell the story. Aaron's perspective, which is the start of the book, is very, you know, medical pandemic focused. It's like, okay, we've recovered a bit from COVID, and now there's this new pandemic called PVG, and this is what's happening. And it feels very real. It feels very much like what would happen to the United States if this happened in real life. There's a lot of social commentary in Aaron's chapters, and I think most of it is very relevant. I did find a little bit, it felt like Lucy Snyder was like picking social justice issues out of a hat, throwing a sentence at them, and then moving on. Like I felt like some stuff was fumbled a little, but for the most part, really good. But once we get to Savannah's perspective and subsequently Mareva's, this book just goes off the rails in the best ways. Without giving too much away, there's a story archetype that I like to call the Gravity Falls ending. If you haven't seen Gravity Falls, this won't make any sense to you. If you have seen Gravity Falls, just think the last couple of episodes and how off the rails that show goes, and then apply that to this book. Absolutely, you must check trigger warnings though. I cannot express that enough. Sister Maiden Monster is like 4 3/4 stars for me. So close to a 5. What cost it that quarter star for me is the mishandling of some social justice issues, but oh well. 4 3/4 stars. Sublime. The final book that I read in July was one that I was supposed to finish so long ago, but I inexplicably took a month off in the middle of reading it, which was a mistake because this book is my only 5 stars. This is my first 5-star in a while, actually, but hands down, no questions asked. Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee is 5 stars. Untethered Sky is the first thing that Fonda Lee wrote after completing the Greenbone saga, and I've heard this from a few people now that like after completing Greenbone she was like, I can do whatever I want, and she did. My literal only critique of this book, which is not even a critique, it's what I say about all novellas that I love, I wish it was longer. But that being said, I actually don't know if that's true. Half of me is saying, oh my gosh, I wish this could be a full fleshed out trilogy, new world building, like I need it. And the other half of me is saying, this was perfect as it was, and this is all we get for a reason. The best way I can explain the plot or the vibes of this book is it very much feels like a dragon riding apprentice story, but with rocks, which are big old birds. And for that reason alone, it's much more unique in my opinion. But also, Fonda Lee's writing is exceptional. I absolutely adored this book. It made me cry, which is rare for me. I don't cry at books, but this made me sob like a little baby. One of the things I like best about this book is that it focuses on some fairly unique mythical creatures. I feel like we get the same monsters and creatures in all of the books. Like, we love dragons, we do. But there's so many books about dragons. How many books about rocks and manticores are there? Just this one? Don't at me if that's not true. Actually, do at me. Tell me other books that have rocks and manticores in them because I love those and I want to read them. So yeah, all I can really say about this is easy 5 stars, and this is officially being added to my favorite books of all time list. As of filming, I'm 10 chapters into the last tale of The Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is my first Roshani Chakshi. I knew going into it that it's like a gothic romance more than anything else, but it is fantasy, so I did try to read it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep going. I think the writing is beautiful, but I'm so bored. I've also just started reading The Hand of the Sun King by J.T. Greathouse. Like literally just started. I'm 5 pages in. I haven't seen much about this book. Oh, it looks like it's my hand. Why is this so funny to me? I really haven't seen much about this book online. I forget even where I first heard of it, but I ordered it immediately. So I'm hoping that it's gonna be good. I'm hoping it's one of those books that I can't stop. It looks like it's my hand. I'm hoping it's one of those books that I love and that I can share with people and people will start reading it. I'll let you know, and I'll let you know also if it's bad, but it's another real short one, barely 350 pages. And finally, I have The Sun in the Void by Gabriela Romero Lacruz. This is actually an arc that I was given from Orbit, so like I have to read it because it's an arc, but also I do want to. I'm excited for some South American fantasy. I've seen it a bunch on Instagram, but mostly I'm just seeing like the Fairy Loot or Illumicrate edition floating around. I haven't actually heard much about if it's good, so I'm gonna read it and we'll see. Okay, so that was everything I read in July. I feel good about this month. I feel like I'm back on track with reading. I'm excited about the books I'm reading now, and I think my August wrap up will be a similar length. I'm also hoping to finish building my library downstairs soon so that my background can be more than just empty shelves. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 3 days a week. I love you guys. Goodbye.